or auction purchasing.
Or auction. All kinds of great things you could do in Boston.
I got a thing to vent too, which is where you can splatter paint together, or break things, but it was for splatter paint. I was looking forward to breaking things. But I feel like you could do that at the swap shop.
What is the swap shop?
Oh, this is,
Just kidding.
we know about the Titanic stuff, right?
Yes.
My son sent this,
The people not missing.
might be in poor taste.
A lot of poor tasting. All right,
The guy looking up.
No.
it's 6 o'clock in Lee. We're gonna bring this meeting to order. Today we're gonna be discussing the financial planning tool. It is the 22nd?
It is the 22nd.
22nd of June, 6 o'clock. Want to start?
I can start with just a brief overview. I believe John has the meat of the matter here. One thing I can add to this that I learned this afternoon, the air conditioning compressor in this building that powers the air conditioning for the fire department has stopped working and is not repairable and probably needs to be replaced. As near as Mr. Bullock and I can tell, that is about a $3,000 purchase.
And are we looking at all into anything that is in any way environmentally or energy-wise savings? Because there are so many savings and rebates on that.
I can certainly strongly suggest that as we move
Fabulous.
forward and we can really want to replace it with.
That'd be great.
And I hope to, I've got RFPs for the building and for the clerk of the works just about ready to go. I'm waiting for final legal approval on those, and then I'll bring those to the board along with a timeline for moving forward with those RFPs.
Great.
I have one question. ARPA 1 is totally gone, right? You've already-
Yes, it's
Okay,
totally
so
gone.
That's already been taken care of.
Right, and one of the things that I had mentioned at previous meetings, and I took it off the ARPA sheet that I last sent to John, that I would need additional money for the software and the contracting. I was able to just squeak by with what was left in the financial director's salary. It's gonna be very tight, like within $2 or $3, but I did not use any ARPA funding
Oh, okay.
to finish that process, so.
It's amazing.
So does that mean that it's, the actual cost is $38,250 and you don't need anything more, or?
It is $38,250.
Okay.
There were some contracting costs for labor, manpower, and staff that went along with that, that I was thinking I wasn't gonna have enough money to cover out of the financial administration budget, but we are gonna be able to.
This here in black is the spreadsheet that I received from the town administrator.
Great.
And then in the brick red color over here is my additions, making this into a checklist for me to check off as I made these changes or updates in the FPT. And so that's the checklist column. And then comments, in some cases this is where did I put them, or what was there a change, like this one was a change to annual budget instead of being listed as ARPA. And then what line are they in when because there's 11 of them that moved to the extra one. I don't know if you remember, but in the FPT we have 2 extra worksheets, extra 1 and extra 2. And previously when we did ARPA, I renamed one of them to ARPA 1 and renamed all the other pieces in the spreadsheet. This time I didn't do it, I just left it as extra 1.
Perfect.
And so it shows up in the summaries as extra 1. And for the ARPA, for these items, anything that was either completely new and hadn't been planned before, or really didn't have anything to do with any of the other categories, like tree removal at the cemetery. That's not one of the categories that we have a worksheet for. And well, actually, there is a separate cemetery fund for some of that, but so that got just entered into extra 1. And then I totaled it, and here I have a different number than this column, and that's because in this column I left in the amount for the cemetery shed And I left in the amount for the building energy upgrades. Cemetery shed is shown over here with no cost. And the building upgrades are shown here without a cost. So in this column and in the FPT, I left them in, but if you subtract them out, then the number that's in the FPT, after you subtract those out, comes up with the same number that the town administrator had. Right now, this is the total that's in the FPT because I did leave those two items in. There were also, what items were in the FPT listed to come from ARPA, but now are not listed to come from ARPA, and that was these two items. The GPS JS location for underground pipes, that was a highway department, 25,500, and the sprinkler pipes. And so if you take this total and said, well, what if we added those back in, that's what you get, or that's what you get, or if you added it all back in. So that was my checklist of.
I have a couple questions, Brian.
I don't know if this date is correct or not.
That is not correct.
Okay.
So I started the spreadsheet. It's been modified 3 times since.
So, yes, you have a.
Sallyport, it's only a portion. We haven't finished it, have we?
My understanding is that the Sallyport is finished. I can double check that.
Okay. So it's all done.
With the DPW director, but yeah, we're able to do that at a much lower rate than anticipated.
5,006.
And when we did the transportation auto upgrades, did we get to return to the ARPA funds, the money from the parts we got to sell, or did we have to put that back
I
into the?
believe that went straight into the general fund.
Okay.
We sold a meter, I believe, for $800. And that actually sort of panned out because we also accidentally chopped up some cable
Okay.
that was intended to be used, so.
I kind of got mixed up.
It was
Got
just about a dollar for dollar wash.
Okay, well, that's good.
The sprinkler pipe says the repairs done house, more could be done. What is that?
So originally that was entered as $18,000 to replace all,
Yeah.
because they were being replaced piecemeal. And the assessment at that time was that because they are what's called black iron, they're steel pipes, but they're not galvanized. And a lot of them were leaking and had been replaced piecemeal, that essentially that system is at the end of its economic life. And that was what that $18,000 figure was for buying all of the materials to have Public Works Department do the replacement.
But then they seemed not interested in it.
Well,
They've been replacing more and more
yeah.
individually.
What drove the repair on that was the freeze up we had this winter, and a number of the pipes in the transfer station froze first. And Steve, Peter, and Warren were able to replace portions as they saw fit, and that was essentially what the DPW director told me when I asked him about that line. He said, we've done a lot in-house with pipe that we had, pipe that we scrounged. We could certainly do more, but at this point, it's not a priority, so.
Do we have any way to insulate some of these pipes that burst regularly? Is that something we've thought about?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay.
I can certainly talk about
I
this.
know it's not cheap, but
These pipes in the ceiling don't have water in
what do they have in them?
them, air.
They had
They're
somehow,
not supposed to have water in them.
there was water in some of them when we had that deep freeze, and a number of them burst.
They've been developing leaks, and when they start to leak, then the compressed air leaks out.
Got it, and then the water
The
The
condensation.
reason they have the compressed air in there is because it's an unheated building,
Right,
and if they were filled with water, it would freeze.
which it is.
So,
So replacing them would have been great.
and my understanding is that the reason that they're, have been rusting is because of condensation on the pipes. So even when it's just air on the inside, condensation on plain steel drips to the bottom, and they develop pinhole leaks on the bottom.
Right, so wouldn't it help if you had the wrap around it, because then it wouldn't, the condensation wouldn't be such a dramatic temperature change that it would have to, I mean, I guess at some point it
I
would
don't know
still.
what they used this time, but previously they've been replacing them with galvanized.
Okay. I just wanna like avoid the crises in the middle of the night that cost a lot more than repairing them ahead of time.
I did, in the FPT, I did change that from the funding to come from ARPA to the funding in annual budget,
Okay.
because it's somehow coming out of his budget. Okay. So,
So technically, we're looking at a difference of, is it 59,000, is that the right number?
If we don't include
If you don't
the
include-
shed and the energy bulbing upgrades, if we include them, then it's 47.
Did we had put aside money for that, but did we have a specific energy upgrade in there?
We did not. We had discussed these windows, we discussed doors.
But we have no estimates at this point.
I don't believe that DPW has any hard and firm estimates. And there were some thoughts about what might help improve.
and that was for all town buildings, not just this, or any town buildings.
Right.
And Andy, refresh my, we have to spend these monies by the end of December?
No, I believe it's 2026 is the final cutoff.
Oh,
Yeah, plenty of time.
There's no rush to.
okay, good.
What is the, can you scroll down a little bit, John? Thank you, my dear. The GPS, is that a machine,
It's a
or it's
program.
actually doing something?
It's devices and a program that would allow Steve to inventory, well, just about everything, but also underground pipes and drains, intersections.
Does he
It's a
still
program
do
that you looked at also enables you to GIS, put GPS chips on your major pieces of equipment. You can track them with this. It would also do an inventory of all equipment you had if you had time to enter it all.
But by having that, it would allow him to send out crew member who's not familiar with where are the culverts, and they'd be guided to culvert or underground pipe they were trying to find.
Do we remember why that was taken off of ARPA funding?
I don't, I think they're just, the interest behind it waned and it wasn't presented as a
Okay.
expense that was needed.
So can we look at the stuff that can be looked at in terms of expending those remaining dollars? Are there other items that,
One discussion that I had with the DPW director after your last meeting was regarding the vehicle for building maintenance. And Steve mentioned to me that the F-350 that I said had some rust in it is actually in much worse shape than I conveyed to the board. And Steve is planning on coming to you and asking you if he can surplus it at the state auction at the White Farm this fall, and he is still very interested in purchasing a pickup truck, probably along the lines of a GM 2500 or a Ford 250 series that could be used as a maintenance truck and also have a plow on it. And I looked at state bid prices over the last couple of weeks, and you're looking at somewhere between $45,000 and $50,000 right now on the state bid for an F-250 V8 four-wheel drive gas truck.
so is that on our list here someplace? That
It is
vehicle?
not. That's a very recent conversation that I had with
No,
Mr. Bullock.
the vehicle that you want to sell because it's rusted, it's on there someplace, right?
Yeah, I believe it's an F-350 and older. Maybe it's
Line
it might be the 250. It's the utility body truck.
Is it that one?
It's fairly old. It may be that 2010 F-250.
Line number 2.
Which was scheduled for 2028,
It's pretty early.
5 years away.
Well, that's a pickup truck that's 18 years old. That's not really realistic.
Nope.
You got a link there, Mr. John, for pickup? What is that? Is that like a quote from?
I suspect it does not work.
We approved a purchase in 01, so that must be the one he drives currently.
Yeah, the old one is the, you've seen Steve driving it, it has a utility body on it with compartments.
But then, which one is it? So,
We don't know if that one already got approved.
file
There's
first.
a plow for an F-350, a spreader for F-350.
And those are not
I
on
would
this.
say
one?
that it has to be the 2010 F-250.
So, well, so it's 13 years old? I assume.
So it's been replaced with the one he's driving, but this is the one that is gonna be scrapped.
This is the one that he would like to get rid of,
Okay.
yes. And his thought was to surplus it at the state auction. And I'm looking, a similar truck, McFarland Ford, for example, on the regular cab, F-250 8-cylinder, four-wheel drive, presently is listed at $47,220 on the DAS Administrative Services site under procurement and contracts.
And the plow is 6,000? Hopefully.
There's a
Scroll down, Mr.
down
John.
here.
Plow, 6,000, yeah, okay. So it's 53,000. About.
Those are last year's prices,
Well,
about that.
we're in the ballpark. 2023 cost 62.73 approximately, with some kind of inflation factor. So the old truck was set to be replaced. We bought a new one. So now it's still on there to be replaced again? I'm missing something because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we should have probably taken it off when we bought one, if that's the one.
Well, we either should have traded it in, or if we're using it for something else.
Do we know why it has to be a 250 if we're just gonna be, like, what is that?
This is the one that we just bought.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea behind getting at least a 250 size truck is that you get the heavy duty suspension and frame, and it's much more suitable for plowing.
So if you got an electric, it'd be much heavier and much sturdier frame. Do we know anything about their plowing ability?
I have discussed the plowing ability.
The
On
only,
F-150?
the only electric truck you can get is a Ford F-150, which is electric.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I know, but that's a half-ton truck.
But if you're dealing with, if it's the frame, it's the strength, it's a much sturdier, all the weights on the bottom, and it's much sturdier. That's why they can have a glass roof.
I don't think that's how it works. but-
Well, we should find out.
I can certainly check. Unfortunately, I pulled the McFarland site off the state bid price, and they don't have electric trucks listed. I'll check some of the other dealerships. A lot of the other dealerships included electric cars in the state bid specs this year.
Yeah, there's just a lot of money, and actually the next round is gonna start doing more of replacing.
Say, if you weren't using it for plowing, certainly the building maintenance truck is, not going long distances.
No.
Is gonna be running around town for the most
Right.
part. One of the other reasons for a heavier duty truck was because we have the new large mower, that there's a relatively heavy trailer that goes along with that.
It's gonna be 5,000 pounds, is more than that.
That, I don't know, I would doubt it.
5,000 pound towing range. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive.
So,
Plus, if you got to some place where you needed to have a electrical plug to do maintenance, you could plug it into the car. So any place we didn't have a working electrical outlet, you could still do maintenance.
I can certainly see what I can find for
It just-
price
it
estimates.
just humorous, just because it just makes sense. You're not buying gas, you're not paying, you're actually gonna save money over the time, and it's not much different in price once you get your units, which towns are now eligible.
And we haven't been, the original discussion of the town maintenance building was that it would be a light, small vehicle.
Right.
That could buzz between buildings. And this has come up again because Dave Devenish, the building maintenance supervisor, now has a much older pickup truck with a little over 200,000 miles on it, and he's driving a lot more than he anticipated when he said, sure, I can use my own vehicle, and he's also hauling
Right.
a good-sized trailer with a heavy mower on it.
Right, which makes sense if you have if you can do that, that makes sense. Do you remember, John, we were talking about the fire department, and I remember them talking about one of the trucks that we were converting could now have a plow so that they could take care of maintaining this area during a storm. Is that familiar, or am I just
I
making
do
that up in my
have
head?
recollection of that.
Okay, so we have another truck in the town that has plowing capability that belongs to the fire department, which means we're getting this area. So is it just is this gonna be like a backup to or is this the only truck that does plowing?
My discussion with Steve with regard to this, the plow was an afterthought. I went to
Mhm.
Steve and said, hey, I talked to Dave, he asked me if I would revive Kristen's request for a
Mhm.
building maintenance vehicle so they wouldn't have to haul garbage and that sort of thing. And Steve said, yeah, definitely bring it to the board. And then as an afterthought, he said, it would be nice if we bought something big enough that I could put a plow on. He said, then whoever the building maintenance person was could plow the town offices and the library and
Okay.
things of that nature as needed, and my guys wouldn't have to worry about it.
It was like a note on the F-150 electric being a snowplow.
You saw that somewhere?
Yeah, I'm Googling it.
Got it, thank you. Too bad.
Not related to the financial planning tool, but on a vehicle-related note, I did talk with the police chief about the Humvee that has been,
Let me guess, he doesn't wanna get rid of it?
well, no, he would be happy to get rid of it, but the military equipment, and that is considered military equipment that was given to law enforcement agencies, cannot be surplused or sold. It has to be passed on to another agency if you were done with it. He is looking into options for when that piece of equipment has met the end of its effective life and what the strategy is for getting rid of it. But the paperwork that we signed to take it from Barrington gave it to us because they couldn't get rid of it, and they had to give it to another agency, either law enforcement or military. And whoever was on the board at the time and the police chief signed a document saying that when they were done with it, they would only pass it on to a law enforcement or military agency. And the military doesn't want any of them back.
No, so at some point it becomes really valuable scrap metal. So do we
I'm not sure
get
if we
to
can
collect money on
financially
that?
benefit from this scrap. It might just be a good anchor or a flower garden.
Gosh.
He has made a request to the agency that oversaw the distribution of those trucks, so
Okay, so hopefully
he's
they,
not gotten an answer yet.
great. Don't love the idea of just passing it on to another police department. But we can figure it out.
So the other place that, well, the places that ARPA shows up is in town buildings, and then also in the extra one. In the extra one is where I added 11 line items that didn't
Oh, yeah,
conveniently go in other places.
perfect.
I know that some of these, James Farm survey, and that was previously scheduled to be ARPA 1.
Yeah,
It was taken out, so now it's ARPA 2.
okay,
So rather than putting it back into roads and bridges, I just put it here in ARPA, in the extra one.
great.
I believe that this easement design is the same, is related to that.
Yes, it was.
Um,
It was the same.
And then, although this is a town building thing, the fire department roof electrical, it's something that was not previously listed, and it's not something you're gonna do again, so I didn't put it in with town buildings. Things that you're gonna do again, like if you buy a pickup truck and now you're gonna replace it in
Right.
10 or 15
Needs to be in
years,
there.
you leave it there, but you're not gonna have a line item for that little piece of the electrical system. Tree removal, again, it doesn't fit. Fire department station alert, I believe that was in previously, so I put it here. Again, tree removal. The insulation in this building, that was in, previously listed, was taken out, so now it's back in, so I stuck it in here again. That's something you're not gonna repeat.
Right.
The garage door, that's something that you may repeat, but you're talking about buildings that have lots of doors, so we don't want to go listing every door
And it's under 5,000.
individually. It might be that you want to list some category for things like that, but you certainly don't want to list each door. Trails, again, doesn't fit with the others. The software, and I put this, the annex ramp, I think that this is for the museum, is that?
Not
It
annex.
it is, yes.
So the museum deck is listed under town buildings,
Mhm.
but the ramp was done separately later.
Yes,
So-
it was just completed.
But that would need to be updated, upgraded in the
Right.
lifespan of that, which would be like
So-
15 years or something.
So if you're going to do that, the thing to do is put it in as just a one item, as the deck is all one thing.
It's everything, including the ramp.
When the ramp needs to be replaced, the deck, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's a misnomer on my part, that should have been museum ramp.
We'll forgive you.
John can tweak it.
If he knows how to spell,
I'm pretty sure you do.
museum.
That's a word I can never spell right.
And that was just finally completed this week with the completion of handrails.
Yay! The flowers look lovely.
Well, he's still got the handrails for the steps, though.
Oh, does he?
He still has to do those. So those are all things that we've done already, correct?
And that number is likely to be a little less than $1,000 that at the last meeting, I asked you if we could use up to 1,000.
So what other things are potentially we could use for that remaining monies?
So there's also items listed under town buildings right now
Okay.
in ARPA.
Did we ever get an estimate on the project to
Digitize.
digitize? Yeah.
Digitize. I do not have a hard and fast number yet. I've
Okay.
talked with Xerox, Canon, and a private New England company that does this. And I've not
No one's gotten back to you.
No, they have gotten back to me. I have not gotten a firm grasp on, they ask you things like, exactly how many documents do you have of each size?
I don't know.
That's
Got it.
something that's gonna require a little work from me,
Got it.
a little more work. So we have plans ranging from 4x4 to, historical things that are
Right.
8.5
And how
by
many,
17.
you don't, it's like a lot of work to figure out all the different pieces of that.
We've also stapled things handily over the past few decades.
So the town hall boiler has already been done, that's on A2, ARPA 2. These colors in red just show items that have previously been done, and now I've just rolled them over to the next 15 years or 20 years, or whenever it's thought they might be needed
Great.
again. The next ARPA 2 is the cemetery shed. The plan here was that Highway Department has a shed which is in very bad shape, and they want to replace it. The shed that's at the cemetery is in decent shape, but its arrangement, specifically the door location, doesn't make it work well for what they need it for. So the idea was to take the cemetery shed and move it to the Highway Department, and then get a new shed for the cemetery. So that's, I have that listed as ARPA 2. And the sprinkler, I now have listed, is still listed as $18,000. Because it's being done piecemeal, I just put it in as annual budget. And then down the bottom here, the occupancy sensors for this building completed, and that was the price. The energy upgrades, I left it in as the $8,000, and again, it's ARPA 2. The transfer station electrical upgrades, that was the actual price. The entrance roof, because that had been listed previously, here it is with the actual price. And the electrical service that went along with that is listed under the extra one. And then Sallyport came in at what is that, 13% of the estimated price?
It's crazy.
Well, part of that was that we had insurance claim money.
Oh,
They came into
okay.
play for that. I'm going to say that there was
That makes a lot of sense.
potentially between $5,000 and $7,000 of an insurance claim.
Okay. That answers, because that was like a whole big problem I couldn't figure out. All right.
Oh, he also didn't know what he was gonna get into, to start taking it apart. So this number up here shows you, on this sheet, there are 7 items listed in Opera 2 for that total, but the total for all the sheets is this 174,000, which is the number you saw previously. It's the number that's on the town administrator's worksheet, plus those 2 items that I left in, the $8,000 for energy upgrades and the $5,400 for the shed at the cemetery.
Okay.
So are there any other potential tabs with things that we could consider or not?
mean, all
It's
of
up to
them.
you, you can consider, I think, almost all of them. I mean,
I think what,
not
at
revaluation,
least what I've been trying to do is to hit one-time items, not something that's reoccurring
Mhm.
over and over and over again.
but we can look through each one of those.
Okay.
Or maybe there's other items on town buildings, but, highway equipment, this is where that GPS and GIS location system was for the 25.5. And to go along with that was the GPS receiver for $6,000. And so right now, because that got Xed out, I didn't do anything with the receiver, but obviously, if you decide you're not gonna buy the GPS system,
Right.
software, you're not gonna buy the receiver. If you are,
The annual expense.
you need both. And yes, this is an expense with the software
Mhm.
and support for it.
I know, I feel like you can hire somebody when you really need it.
One small item I mentioned, or items, is we are very close to going live with credit and debit cards, and that is going to require the purchase of receivers that link to either a Wi-Fi computer or a cell phone. They're not wildly expensive, but somewhere between $300 and $600 a unit, depending on how secure and how fancy you want that unit to be.
So it's what they swipe their card with?
Right.
Or,
That's a great idea.
I think the stationary ones, like the Parks and Rec and Denise would use for facility rentals, are a little over $300. The large handheld ones that you would probably want to use in the transfer station are around $600, so.
Do you think we just need 3?
And those weren't budgeted for previously, so.
so there's Wi-Fi at the transfer station for the store?
Wi-Fi or cell phone?
No, that's not my question is there Wi-Fi at the transfer station for the store?
Yes, I believe that there is right now. And we have several prospective computers that have been
Okay.
resuscitated and rescued that can also serve.
Rescued, okay.
Sounds great.
So I assume the same thing with Karen and Denise, that there's some
Yeah.
Wi-Fi in that building, something like that?
Yes, and they'll also work off a cell phone, so if you wanted to go to the Leaf Fair or, a breakfast at a different building or something like that, you could pair them with a phone.
Okay.
Obviously, you pair it with one of the town-owned secure cell phones we have.
And what's the fee for that? Are we gonna do the same thing that the Ron Kirk's office does, in terms of?
Right,
The fee is that's.
the fee would only be borne by the user, and they would be warned well in advance that if you choose to use this, I'm going to say it's like
3%?
3.5.
Yeah, that sounds
It's between 2.5 and 3%, depending on
And then, is there an item charge additional to that percentage?
not that I'm aware of, and there is no charge back to the municipality, other than if you purchase the swiping devices.
Okay.
If you
So-
wanted to include that, then it's, stick it on an extra 1.
So that's like $1,200.
I think $1,200 would cover it completely, yes.
Okay, can we
That makes
stick
a lot
that
of
on there?
sense.
Because that's something you need like soon?
Hopefully in July, yes.
That makes a lot of sense for ARPA, because the whole point was the American Rescue Plan, and that like fits right in the
So
intent of the funding.
are you okay?
Yeah, I'm pile there for now, like ways to change our minds.
Yeah, well, if he needs it in July, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
think
right
that's a
at
a
yes.
few days away, so
So should we give that a firm yes as we're deciding everything else?
I would be okay with it.
And I guess, how are you gonna describe it, a card reader or card readers? I know the transfer station crew in particular are very anxious to get it and
Yeah.
have daily conversations about why they can't take credit cards.
Daily
Yeah, well,
conversation.
it's frustrating if people just don't have cash in there, it's just a huge, and it's a hassle, it's a thing, they gotta go get change and like all that, you can just swipe it, it will save people time.
So you said the less expensive ones are still over $300,
Yes,
and the other is 600.
for
So
600.
you're looking at
12.
$1,250 or $1,300.
I 1250 should certainly cover the.
And I give John kudos for putting it in the fiscal year.
Nice. John knows his
I will
stuff.
say that this is an estimate from 2 weeks from now.
You would be surprised at the number of financial professionals who send me things with the financial year /23-24 instead of
So
24.
in 2023, the cost is only $1,204.
It's funny.
Yes, you should have bought them last year. Well, real quick now.
I feel like that's untrue.
This all works on, it doesn't see any time divisions finer than a year.
Right.
So even if you're just going
2
from
weeks.
June 30th to July 1st, the spreadsheet sees that that's from one year to the next.
That makes sense.
All right, are we done in highway? Can we look
No,
at the
that
next
was,
one?
we got diverted
I have a question about the town hall
back here.
buildings. Yeah, so one thing I just wanted to mention that has been an idea that has been percolating. We have the tool shed. The community seems very interested in maintaining and keeping all of our buildings. So I've been thinking about, is there a way to turn something that's a bit of an eyesore and not particularly fabulous into something that could have some strong community connection? And could we possibly get some funding to help pay for this? We have to do the remove the paint anyway. So I was thinking about a possible art installation on the garage door, something that would be very tied into the historical nature of our community, something that could, bring some value and be interesting. And so as I've been learning more about art grants and funding, I was talking to some people that are indigenous in our community, and they were discussing, the 8,000 years that they've been here and the different options of art options, that kind of thing. So just something to think about. I'm not saying we should, we have to do this right away or anything like that, but I'm just saying if we're keeping the building, it's not the most lovely thing. It's always bothered me. But if there is a way maybe that we could both get some funding for the building, so we're not just paying that out of money, but make something, and it doesn't mean it has to stay forever, but it would be a lovely place to have a canvas. One thing that every other community that's started to do art installations has found is that it actually increases the sense of community. People want to go see it. It has really positive effects, and art tends to positively impact. And I know, Andy, you've been in some of the meetings where we talked about that.
Yeah, I went to a meeting where we listened to the art coordinator for Rochester. I believe Dover has an art coordinator as well. I think Durham may now too, that have done various installations. From a completely administrative viewpoint, I know you and I talked a little bit about it. My first thought was, in looking at some of the grant proposals, that sort of thing, you can get money for preparation of the surface that you're going to use for your art installation or mural, and seeing there's some concern about what the paint is made out of on that building. If there was preparation funds available to remove and remediate, that might be
Positive.
killed two birds with one stone, for lack of a better term. Get an art installation and get the hazardous paint removed with a grant.
So you take something that wasn't really, that was actually detracting in a negative, and without as much expense as we're looking at, just to make it look the same, you could make it something that actually can bring that community, that area together. So just an idea percolating, and
So the mural would go on the front sliding doors? Is
that's
that-
what I was thinking. I mean, it makes sense to me because it's a large flat space. You've got two, you could have something that really ties into the history and the story of Lee. It's across from the Historical Society, it's next to the library. You've got, it just seemed like a really lovely, I've been thinking a lot about where art could go in Lee, and this just seems like such a beautiful blank canvas that, you'd have to decide, like, what kind of thing you're thinking. Is it something very simple and quiet? Is it something bright and colorful? There's a lot of questions to answer, but for me, it's how do you make something that's gonna be sitting there, not such an eyesore? How do you make the funding less? How do you tell a story? How do you embrace your community? All that.
The-
And you move the accessible space, parking spaces, or you incorporate the new sign into the art.
Sure. You could, who knows?
The paint on the outside of that building, we had it tested,
It's lead.
so it is lead.
That's why I'm worried about it.
And one of the concerns that I had spoken with Dave Devenish a couple of weeks ago about the building, and he was talking about cleaning hazards that the other building maintenance people are facing, not hazards but chores. And every time it is extremely windy or we get heavy rain, some more paint peels off and it sticks to people's shoes and gets tracked into the town hall building and the library.
And that's lead paint with children.
Well, we didn't discuss that, we just talked about how difficult it was to pick up the dried paint that sticks to people's shoes that comes off the building. And if you look at the building, you can see it's coming off regularly.
Oh, maybe we should put painting that grant on the top.
I'm just saying, like, it's
I
not,
think it's a great idea.
thank you. If you can't beat them, join them.
So is it, and I remember they went to the class to do a remediation. So could we do that in-house, or would we hire somebody to come in and remove the paint chips and?
I think you could do it in-house.
You could have
Time and
some of
manpower.
the funding from that, you could in the grant write, we'll be doing this in-house, but this will cost this much in time or labor or whatever.
Yeah, and there are some materials needed to do that correctly, so.
I'm just thinking we're gonna have this hopefully library looking beautiful and looking great, and then there's this chipping, falling apart
Also the
disaster.
roof,
You
does the
might
roof have
find it like
issues?
economies of scale, kind of work with
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, once the people are there to do that,
Yep,
clean it up.
exactly.
The roof?
The roof is listed here also.
7,500.
7,700,
Yeah.
right here.
Okay.
I mean, for me personally, like the idea of expanding the town hall and making that a bigger community center made a lot more sense, but again, the community would like to keep all things that are standing, so
And they're still
Let's
using
make
it, right?
fabulous.
Yes. Building maintenance is using that for storage, and we do have the mobile generator in there as
Yep.
well. That there has been some discussion about, because the mobile generator has a roof built over it, whether that could be parked outside behind the highway shed. And
Well, that's the other thing, since we're in that particular area, that storage container, we don't really use
Oh my
it,
gosh,
right?
that's gotta go.
well, the storage container, there are
And I told you.
two storage containers. One of them has a fair amount of town clerk documents in it. They're archived, there's a humidifier in there, a dehumidifier, not a humidifier, to help preserve those documents. That, my understanding, is relatively full. There is some library shelving in the other one which had nothing in it, that they are planning on taking out and
So
using.
are the documents the town clerk has in there, are those ones that only she can access? Do they need to be in a secure?
They need to be held on. I don't know the exact retention schedule, but no, I could certainly access them, other staff, and I'm not sure what we've got for room in the records room now that we've cleaned that out. It's conceivable that we could put them in the records room.
There would be a better place for them.
These can't be scanned and digitized, these have to be,
These certainly could be scanned and digitized.
because it costs money to run the dehumidifier and all that stuff and have this awful
Well,
shit.
it's not much of a dehumidifier, but.
Okay, okay. Well, a door opening and closing maybe.
Well, it'd be nice if it's not being used to get that out of there.
Yeah.
That's kind of a,
So it's not just ballots. They
That,
used to have ballots stored in there, which is something they just have to keep for like 3 years,
Right.
and then they can get rid of. So there's no,
We
you
should
don't,
find
you
out.
don't digitize those.
I can certainly go, I had intended to go look through there. The lock on the door is apparently Linda Reinholz's personal bright pink master lock. So I can certainly snip that off, get in there, take a look at what's in there for documents, and talk to Liz, the present town clerk, as well.
I just feel like if we're gonna own stuff, we should take care of it. And we should be cognizant of the way it feels to live here and how it feels. And I don't feel proud or excited when I go to that whole area, but there are things we could do that could really make it not just healthier, physically and mentally, but also really lovely and a really great place to be. And I think do them together.
So can we pursue that? Because the thing that concerns me is the lead paint coming off and getting on people's shoes.
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff
terrifying.
like that, so maybe
And
can
we
we
have the
find
library
out?
to do anyway, so.
Maybe we can find out what the cost would be to do that particular project. And I'm not sure who would do the grant to these art places.
Well, one of the things I was gonna say, if you're interested in the idea, is it would be possible to have a art committee or just this project committee, where you just have some people that are interested. We could have somebody from the historical society, somebody from our indigenous community, somebody that, and just have like a few people that could really write this grant
Mhm.
and make sure that we're being, and this is really important, incredibly sensitive and cognizant of what a powerful impact that could have in a positive way, as long as we're always being thoughtful about what we're doing.
So, no murals of Indians chopping
Okay,
walnuts
don't
head off
even.
or anything like that? Okay,
Whoa.
good. We wouldn't want that.
So maybe, yeah.
Well, you remember the
So
controversy at the Durham Post Office?
Yes, I
so-
do remember. I think this is an opportunity to do something really lovely, but it has to be thoughtful.
There's
Nobody there.
local murals in the Durham Post Office. One of them is a picture of a Native American
Yes.
with a torch, and there's a picture of a house in the background, so
I
there's implications there.
This is one of those moments when we can stop telling the old stories and tell some real stories, and I think this is a great opportunity.
Is there a thought to maybe contact the UNH art department?
Yeah, absolutely, I think I just wanted to see if the idea had any legs.
So you just kind of got.
Yes, I just reached out to some people in the community that, do you think this is an interesting idea? Are you, and they're like, well, let's see, nobody wants to get too tangled up in something if you're gonna, because there's a lot of other things going on. But absolutely, and UNH has done an excellent job of reaching out to
Mhm.
our indigenous community and really making some great,
The other thing I was gonna say is if you'd like, I could ask Emily to go to the estimates that she got for the library
Mhm.
and extend it to that tool shed,
yeah.
if that
interesting.
makes sense to
For
you.
the paint removal, you mean?
Yeah, and it's just the schoolhouse part and then would be this tool shed too.
Two shed,
Yeah,
The
yeah,
tool shed, yeah.
two shed with trim.
yeah.
But it's a two-floor
But
thing.
are all four walls, all four
I think everything
sides
is lead.
is lead?
I
Because
think so.
that one does just the three.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know why it wouldn't be, do you know? Does anyone
It
know?
must be,
I don't know
yeah,
what the
it
front
must
door
be.
is.
I can certainly see what we've got for documentation. I know there is some available.
And they did
so-
test
yeah.
it. Because part of it is dealing with the maintenance issue, but also finding an artist that would do it. And
Right,
there's gonna be a
and
cost
paying
to
them
that.
properly, which is what the grant is
Yeah.
a huge part of.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I will ask Emily then if she doesn't mind extending. it
And
to-
a moose plate, this might be a very possible moose plate, that's $10,000 option.
Up
I
to
was gonna say,
20.
I think it's likely all the surfaces,
Yeah,
because the building in the past has been painted red. The parts that are white have been red.
Oh, yeah.
The parts that are red have been white.
And we can also deal with the structural issue inside. There's a structural issue inside, so,
And it has a dirt floor,
yes.
and dirt floors are sources of humidity. And humidity inside and paint on the outside don't like each other.
yeah. So there's a lot of things, that's why the removal was a strong option, but not one I think is gonna go well, so maybe and maybe that's the thing, maybe you give a committee this it's one little thing to focus on, and then it's not, you know, I don't wanna take away energy from the library, I don't wanna redo that. I'm just saying, if we're dealing with a maintenance issue, why not make it something really special
Okay.
and get some money that way for it, so we're spending less and getting more.
What is the structural issue?
There's a support inside, it's not the carrying beams for the roof, it's inside. There's like a little caged in place on the right-hand side, and there's a carrying beam that goes across. And if you get on one side of it, right in the middle of it, you can go like this with it. So I think what they did is they cut it off so that they can get in the generator on the left-hand side. So it probably wasn't a good idea.
You think?
So that, I don't think the roof's gonna fall down, but
Don't make any promises either.
We can also, I mean, when that gentleman, when that sub comes about, we can talk about that as well, because they're gonna rehang the joists on the basement because it's,
oh, yeah.
yeah, because that doesn't meet code, so.
We'd be a little working together and,
Yeah, it's not terribly expensive what they're here, what's one or two more joists?
right,
you
right,
know?
right. We just had to commit to doing it, and with it over, you know, $35,000 in expenses, and we weren't sure, it didn't make sense to do, but
So we do have it currently funded out of the fund in 2024.
Come out of the fund.
So we do have money kind of set aside
Right.
to deal with this in the next fiscal year.
Well, not really.
No?
because we didn't fund it
Because
with
if you look at
anything.
these calculated deposits,
Yeah,
um,
it's only in theory.
for next
That's
year,
fair.
So that's why grants make sense.
That's fair.
instead of 396,000, only 100,000 was set aside.
Ah, never mind then, take it all back.
It's number 28 is what's driving that thing.
Hence-
28, 29.
It's 20.
Oh, the
Ah,
top of
it's
this building,
Yeah,
right?
it's not-
That has $1 million coming out of
Yeah,
it,
so,
the fund.
Put that out of a bond, and it's a different,
yeah.
It has
well,
part of it coming out of a bond,
Yeah,
right?
but this may not be the right mix that you want.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, also in terms of, we're going to explore the federal option as well, so
Right.
that would change those numbers.
The
If
congressional.
we get,
money?
but,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Anything else?
any place we can save money, I think is the key,
No.
any place we can get
Any
grants.
place we can get somebody else to spend, pay
Bingo.
for things,
Right.
yes, so. Anything else in this one? The only other thing I'd consider us to consider is this cemetery shed, because I know how much pain that causes them when they have to get that stuff
We've
out of
approved it
the
like
It's
3
already
times.
on our-
It's costing you extra.
We just have to do
labor.
it.
Yes, but I thought.
We've
if we go
approved
back-
it, he just hasn't been ready to do it yet. I think it was
Oh,
because it got
but
expensive.
But is it funded out of ARPA too, though?
Yeah,
Okay,
It's listed
I
as
think it's just a matter of enthusiasm as much as
Okay.
anything for the project.
So can we give it to somebody who's excited about like the cemetery committee, and maybe they'll move that along? I mean, sometimes it's just about whose hands the project is in.
the cemetery shed.
Yeah,
The problem is it's a switch. The
Right.
shed that's there needs to go,
right.
and
So if the person who, on the one side of the switch is not super excited and really, really busy, can we put the person on the other side of the switch?
but
one person is on both sides.
the switch is on both sides, because it's the DPW people on both ends.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that have to use that particular shed and move things around to get
I'm
the.
just thinking of specific individuals in,
oh,
if one is,
specific
if one
individuals.
is, if one is more excited about the shed than another individual, then,
I can talk to the DBW director
Yeah.
and maybe Mr. Hoyt.
there you go. That's what I'm trying to say.
When did, how are the interviews going for an assistant? Do you have an assistant
Yes.
lined up? Because maybe this is something that person could handle.
Yeah, no, an offer has been made and pending, everything is in place, pending the security check. And I can,
Okay, so
Tell
maybe
you.
that could be on that person's list.
could be.
I think some of these things may be a symptom of how busy those people are.
I think
Yeah, that's why I was
100%.
saying, once we have the assistant, maybe it'll be a lot easier to get it done.
I think we're seeing a lot of that, and that's why
Okay.
we think that they don't wanna do it, it's just that it's not they don't want to,
No, I don't
they
think
just can't.
I think it's that other things just keep pressing in and the other things are
Agreed.
emergencies.
Correct.
Right. So maybe that's something we can
Love it.
leave on our list of ARPA funds and ask the assistant to take care
Yep,
of.
I love that.
Arrange, purchase,
Orchestrate.
orchestrate.
Yes.
The intended assistant is knowledgeable of the
shed.
cemetery shed and buildings and people in process, so.
Exciting.
Okay.
We also, I think it's on this page, I think it's on the extra page, the $8,000 building upgrades, is that something we wanna leave in ARPA?
I
We're
think-
actually going to do
I
something
think it sounds
with
like a
that?
really small amount, but I think that, like, we've talked about this so many times, there is actual wind coming through
I don't
those.
do, whose job is it to make sure that it gets done?
It would be buildings
I
normally.
understand.
This could be possibly driven by Dave Devenish, who is the building maintenance supervisor now.
So if you think it's important enough to leave on ARPA, maybe we need to
Do it.
give it to Dave, ask him to please.
It's a good idea.
I can certainly talk to Dave and tell him that
Energy.
this funding was intended for.
Energy Commission would love to help you with figuring out the, the insulation fixes, the proper
Rebates.
windows. Rebates, 100%.
They're all over it.
Oh my gosh, for windows, there's so many rebates. You can definitely get some help. Insulation, all of it. And that's what it was, right? We have to take them out, insulate around, but,
Right, so let's, but if we move that to someone else's plate, then I'm happy leaving it, I just want to
Great.
earmark it and have it
continue
not
to be
happen.
done. Yeah. And is the door down there, I know that we've done more to adjust it, are we still, what daylight comes through?
I think building maintenance is comfortable with it now. Last year when we took it apart and realized there was no insulation and no support for the door, insulation was installed and better support, and it's not
Look
as
outside.
true as it could be, but you can't look through the seam in the door anymore, and snow didn't blow under it after the repairs were made.
It's
So
just, the best for a door to not have snow come through it.
All right, anything else in this one? No, we can move on to something else.
Where's the AC for the fire department? Is that on here, something that was gonna replace at some point in the near future?
I don't think it's just something new, though.
Well, I don't know, because the police department AC replacement is on here.
So
Yeah, 'cause
that's the
we
one
did
we
that.
just talked
Yeah.
about.
yeah, and that just came up in the last few days.
So that's not on here.
So,
Can we at least just throw quickly to the Energy Commission that we're gonna be doing that, and just if they have anything, that's a great bunch of people that could do that research, so you don't have to do it, Andy. And just say, we're looking for this is the amount we need, we're gonna have to buy something right away, but if you can
so
figure it out for us.
can you stick that on there, John?
Yep.
Fire department?
This is in this building.
It's not number 31, right? That's a different AC. How many ACs are in this one?
My understanding is there are two separate systems in here, one that handles the fire department offices and downstairs
Okay.
office space essentially, and then there was the other one that was replaced or fixed that handles the police side.
But then also one in the bunk rooms?
I think that may be handled by the new installation on the police side.
Okay. I'm looking at 43/31 in red to try and figure out what that AC is.
So this one is called,
Fire department.
Yeah, 31, the PSC AC gym, that would be the bunk rooms, because most of the gym room is now bunk rooms.
So it's a third AC in this building?
Or was it changing the ducting and stuff so that,
Yeah, I don't recall the specifics of what they did exactly.
click on the gym AC and see what it says.
I don't think that links to it.
Are we,
Looks like
Everybody's
something.
here?
Yes.
yeah.
No, he doesn't have
I
that.
No, actually, we're not. We're a co-op. That's why we
I
got
was
the
working
grant
on this until
installation.
We appreciate
this
it.
afternoon, between, in the middle of trustee stuff of moving money around, and these links are not brought over. So,
Okay. All right, fair.
um,
Okay, there's a place
So,
The fire department AC was running fine, was not even discussed when we were talking about the police or making changes for the bunk rooms, and that conked out about 2 weeks ago, and we were hoping it was gonna be an easy fix, but Steve found out today that the compressor is shot, and the estimate that the technician gave him said plan on spending around $3,000.
Okay. Well, if anything, it's a placeholder.
mm,
Strogan's talking about efficient AC systems rebates of $2,000, like there's, just let's speak.
Right.
We looked at this, was
We
it?
looked at highway,
Yeah,
so,
there's
probably not road bridge, but we looked, but, yeah, it was a little bit, a little bit too much.
And we have bridge money left that we received from the state that I don't believe has been
Oh, great.
used
Does
yet.
that have to go to bridges?
It does. We received 2 grants, the road grant that can be used on anything, and the bridge grant.
Didn't we use some of that for the
Paving.
paving?
Yes.
So how much is left after all of that?
I believe most of the road grant has been spent. There is, I'm trying to remember which is which, there's 78,000 or 96,000 in the bridge fund that can only be used for bridge projects.
Okay.
Okay.
And how long do we have to spend this?
I think we have another year.
Okay.
Can we use that too for the old Mill Road Bridge header?
I know
Or is that
Steve, I
already-
believe Steve has some, has done
He's
some
got-
I
planning.
think
Alright.
that's already listed, that's a 79,000 grant. These last two is actually one item.
And you can't pay, like, some of it's the grant and some of it's we have to pay for, the 20 grant.
Looks like that's split.
The money that we got from the state was just the check, the primary consideration was that it has to be spent on bridges.
Oh, and so does it count as our portion of a payment? Normally, they don't let you take it out of the same pot.
It's not a formal grant, this was like block
Okay,
aid that came from the
Okay.
state of New Hampshire.
perfect.
We got a regular highway grant, and then last year they enhanced the bridge grant, so we didn't get that much.
We can trust that Steve is on it and figuring out how to.
I believe Steve has very definite plans for that bridge
We
money.
got more paving done than we thought, which was really exciting, so that's great.
These numbers in this division of the 100,000 divided into the 79 from grant and the 21 to come from the fund, that was Steve's.
Perfect.
And it's listed here as annual budget because I don't have a separate grant
But
category.
I think also, don't we have to pay them, they pay us back, and so we had to have the money available? Isn't that how those grants work?
I understand that most grants work that way, like the one that we're looking at for Chesley Brook on Packers Falls works that way, the ARM grant.
You don't know about that?
This one I'm thinking is the check that we got from the state
Okay,
for bridge money that they said we could just spend,
so we'll get
just
more
like you
information
do,
then.
just like you can the highway block grant.
Okay.
Fire? Doesn't look like some one-time thing.
Some of the utility things, I feel like we just did, like the refab, that's all done, fiscal year, oh, so we voted, that's gonna happen this year, because we voted on it in March, okay.
Yeah, there's anything
Ponds, cisterns,
That's all.
can't afford any of those.
there.
Elder Osborne's been on here since before I started, just for the record, like he's gonna be in a year now, every year.
Elder Osborne,
This cistern repair has been here for quite a while.
Yes, years,
And
really needs to happen.
Well, my understanding is there was the expectation that it could be done for less than this. Also, that by it not being done and it continuing to leak, it's costing you time to go fill it periodically.
Yeah, I mean, my neighbors love it, they call it the Dillon Pond, and they're huge fans. I feel bad if that went away, but like, it's definitely leaking, and they had to come fill it, and it's a
So
thing.
so unless it's just really good practice for the fire department
I
personnel,
don't know.
So,
it-
yeah,
it pays to fix it.
We are right next to the campfires of the campground, so just very aware of, like, we've already had fires that
so
have gotten big.
can we ask the chief to find out what it is to repair it or whatever he's contemplating? Is it still $50,000 or is it, something else?
Well, do we have it coming out of this fund at some year? What's
Yes.
what's M and O?
Excuse Excuse me?
Sorry,
We
columns.
do have cistern money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't we already have
We
something
do.
for it to come out of?
We do.
Yeah, it's to come out of the fund, and it's to happen within the next 2 weeks.
Okay,
Um,
Nothing to worry about on that
That's-
page.
At the last update, that's what
Okay.
this planned year was.
Well,
And this has been pushed off year after year for a
Yeah.
while.
yeah, so I'm not talking about where it's coming from, I'm just talking about, because somebody just
16
mentioned
years.
that it could be less, so
Yes.
can we get an updated number in terms of what it costs to fix that, so we can do something about it?
I mean, are we actually gonna do it? I don't understand.
Yes,
Okay.
I can talk to the fire chief about
so,
cost and scheduling and intent.
so if they're expending extra time and effort, let's get it fixed.
We also
Schedule
had
to-
When,
the public safety complex cistern for this year. Did that happen or not happen?
I think they're still discussing it because there's a whole bunch of debates about were we gonna do it,
Where we can.
where are we gonna do it, and then wasn't one of the ideas, because it was for fire suppression, but we're not doing
Yes.
installing, so I think that's why it's confusing.
yes, it was for the fire suppression system, which,
Then I guess, can we have
Yeah,
updates on
funded.
both of those? Are we actually doing it this year or in the immediate future? In the next 2 weeks or in 24?
when you're in a time when you have the money in the bank,
Mhm.
and you're not able to make a return on the money you have in the bank that's better than the rate of inflation,
Mhm.
then,
It's a good time to spend
and
it.
especially when it's also costing you labor,
Mhm.
then you should get it fixed.
I agree.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm only seeing 2026.
That's why I said
Where's
where columns
2000?
M and O.
Oh,
And you all just be like, it was crazy.
Because I didn't know, that spells mock to me, so, you
No,
know.
or he's just scooted over.
Oh, there we go, okay.
So, I mean, this fund is actually well-funded.
Yes,
So it makes sense that these things should happen now or in the
Yeah.
very immediate future.
yes, the
So
calculated
let's
amount
get
to
it
meet
done.
everything here was 30,520, and
but
the town voted for 30,000.
Mhm.
And that makes almost no difference in what you have to do for future years.
Right.
okay, all right.
These numbers will change a small bit. Going into the new year, I should update what the inflation has been,
Mhm.
because you can put in an inflation for the next, what has it been historically, and what do you expect it to be for the next 50 years.
Right.
And so that hasn't been updated. And then, right now, the expected interest rate to be earned is what I predicted quite a while ago.
Which is much higher now.
Yeah, the problem is that one, you can put in what is the interest to be earned in the current year.
Oh, okay.
So that's fairly well known, although I think it's a little higher than I was predicting.
Yeah,
But that's a mix of, we started out real low,
right.
and now we're high, but effectively, what is it for the whole year?
Right.
Going forward, the spreadsheet only allows you to use one figure for
So you have to
all
kind of like
future years.
guess a number that nobody on earth actually knows.
I have the record of what the Open Market Committee has predicted
Mhm.
for like the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
And they have access to a lot more information than I do, and their numbers the real world completely messes up their plans.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't
know,
work that
right?
way.
There's no way you could guess that right now.
Yeah.
So we just have to go very conservative, but use this year,
Yeah, right now, it's predicting future years at just 2.4%.
which is smarter than predicting them higher and then being painfully wrong.
For the transfer
Yep.
station.
Holy moly.
You lost column M again.
Oh.
I think it's like when you zoom in, it like
Ah.
starts to.
Just gets rid of it.
Okay, so did either of these things for 23 happen?
I don't recall hearing about it.
I thought we did.
I
Can we
don't
find
know.
out?
Oh,
We did or not.
let's check.
And
So I
then,
remember us having a conversation about buying more than one and saving on the shipping.
and can we check and see if we are intending to actually do the 2 and 24? the scale platforms. Do you have your rows by date, of expected date of it happening?
And here we do.
Okay.
It's
fantastic.
perfect.
I
I know
just
that-
heard a couple of an automatic method to do that.
I wanna do
Okay,
it.
let's see.
Steve has mentioned the Bobcat to be a little bit earlier because of the amount of money available in grants. So it would cost a lot less, but it might develop sooner. Because anything that goes from diesel to electric has a huge amount of grants being thrown at it this year.
Wonderful, this is, and we met the deposit, and they go down from here,
Right.
so, I mean,
We
we're
should be
in
doing
really good
things.
shape,
Yeah,
so we should do these things.
I like the things when we can pay for them. If we had been doing this all along with buildings, we would also be able to pay for all of those.
Can you scroll down? All right, thanks. Oh, I saw what I wanted to see.
Oh, okay.
Next tab?
Let's just go further out.
So I think we're getting an update about this on Monday.
Yep.
So maybe we skip this for now, since we don't, I mean, we have no control over this.
Okay, well,
This one's the library building.
the building itself versus the,
So is this something that we are in control of?
This is the one
Outside, we do, we are.
for which you are the agent to expend.
Okay.
Right.
In this library capital reserve fund, this is the one that requires the town vote.
but that got pulled down to like almost nothing.
Right.
Right, so library building, then the first one on there is renovation, but that's not the select board,
That's
that's the
different.
library trustees.
Um,
Yeah, because that's unless we're doing $400,000 worth of outside renovations, I mean, are we like stripping off everything and adding insulation from the outside? I don't think so.
This is planned to go for the renovation that they are planning right now.
Internally. That's not our.
All of the building.
Okay.
My understanding is that there is no distinction between, there is no envelope on the building outside of which is under your control, other than something outside of the outside layer of paint. If it's actually outside the building, it's yours.
And the only difference is that particular capital reserve fund where the agents to expend, that's the only
Correct.
difference.
All right, so we can discuss this on Monday in detail in the
Yeah,
library.
just to be clear though, what I just heard was that only exterior to the exterior
Right, which is not,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
correct,
So
it's included,
the parking lot.
right. It's including our responsibilities, the outside of the building, and
No.
the definition is, according to the rules that I thought you told me about, was that we have the responsibility to maintain the building exterior, and they have to maintain interior. Which is why we wanted to have an entire conversation with them about what our responsibilities were in theirs, so that it was clear.
Well, in this particular thing, we're just looking at 2 capital reserve funds. That's all this
Yes.
is.
Right.
That's all this is.
This detail wasn't in the financial planning tool that was on the website. Because I have this, and I only have one line. I have construction and renovation.
I think that's,
I only have the top line. So is this a
Um,
newer version that?
yes.
Oh, are you gonna post it on the website?
He was working on it up until the meeting today.
Okay,
So-
that makes sense. Okay, I've been there. Yeah, so I'd like to have that before.
yeah, it'd be great if we could Monday.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
These are the inputs that came from the library trustees.
Okay,
These are not inputs made up by anybody here, other than this first one, which is a number that I put in, because the library plan was to fully use that fund.
right, so you knew it was gonna be at least that.
And it might not work out exactly correct, I see it
We're
comes out to a -0.
missing M again. I'm sorry, John.
She just really loves her M's.
Yes, she lives
Well,
right.
that's why I'm saying, right, like, if,
Mm.
I like call them M, thanks.
I do too, but I'm used to looking this where I
I
can see the
know.
whole thing
I know.
all at once.
So the thought was the library was planning on withdrawing the fund all the way down to basically zero.
Correct.
And then in '24, the town voted to put $2,000 in, but the things that you pulled off the library from the
Is
trustees
more than that.
is $296,000.
Correct. This is input from the trustees. And the trustees saw these numbers at last time that the warrant article was being considered, and decided that to fully fund this, they needed to ask for $290,000, and instead asked for $200,000, saying that they would find the money from someplace else.
Yes, which we'll discuss on Monday.
That's what that is.
Yeah, I'll definitely have that all.
Yeah.
Recreation.
Separate, yep.
And
And the funding associated with it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you have a fundraising plan or anything else that's been discussed?
Yes,
Awesome.
but so we've divided into teams,
Okay,
and that is
A different
Annie,
team?
Annie and Katrinka.
perfect.
So
That'd be just great to know what's being planned.
Emily and I are doing this. Yep,
Perfect, love it.
yep.
We don't need to worry about the,
This is,
they
this
still
is.
have money in the account, right?
Hmm?
They still have money in the account,
Yeah,
yeah.
35,000.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
But also, this is something that will come from the rec commission
Correct.
in terms of
When they decide what they want to
where
do.
it is and how much it costs and.
Do you have any updates?
This is what came from them last time.
Yeah, do it.
I think we just keep pushing it out. I don't know that anybody sees.
What the vision is. I think that was when I was part of the committee, it was very much like, we don't quite know what to do, so ripping it out for no reason made no sense.
This is the tennis court that's already here next to
Yeah.
us, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thought was put it in the Little Park location, so.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know if you
there's
actually
like a
talked about it.
whole, like, should it be tennis, should it be pickleball?
Well, they already have a pickleball.
Yeah, the only comments I've heard are, you
Apparently,
should turn it into
pickleball is
pickleball
very
courts.
expensive.
So we are constantly booked up on pickleball. It is
Yeah.
never a
We have
free
to decide
time. It's a
the
big
rules.
deal. So I will just say,
Okay.
don't dismiss the pickleball.
We have a fair number of calls that come in and conversations that are had at town office about pickleball, court availability, whether residents should take precedent over non-residents, who's
Yes.
actually playing
Big
pickleball,
deal.
how long the people have been playing
We're
pickleball, have
working
been
on
playing
a sign of
pickleball.
rules.
So if they
Yeah.
did wanted to make it into pickleball, there is a way to make it so that if in the future you wanted to change it into a different type of court, you could,
It's just
Plan
different
it.
lines on the ground, right?
and how you,
I don't see this as something
I
that, we
think
don't
they
need to
raise
invest our
it, they
money
raise it
in
and put a
those
different floor.
Correct.
My nephew did that.
and do you know Exeter is discussing like a multi-million-dollar pickleball indoor
Well,
court,
If
so.
they want that, they can move to Exeter. So,
And in
Plus-
Massachusetts, they're running into problems with the noise of pickleball.
Yeah, people complaining about the pickleball cart
Where they
making too
put
much
them
noise.
in residential or near
Yes,
residences.
that makes sense.
so I
Yeah,
think
it's a very annoying thing.
this is on hold until the rec commission
Yeah.
comes with
So
whatever they.
we don't have to worry about it, it's not our
All right,
thing.
next one.
Pickleball.
I think there's
That was a fun
nothing else, 'cause
conversation.
this is conservation easement, so
Great.
it's just a
Great.
placeholder.
Not us,
um,
can't do anything
And
here.
accrued benefits,
Great.
and revaluation. And
That's
nothing
good.
to do there.
All right.
And
So-
then there's the extra where, if there's other things you wanna add.
To review, the biggest things we have still are upgrades to our buildings,
The energy upgrades.
energy upgrades,
Mhm.
and just library issues. And then we have digitization. And then everything else is either already covered, or it's a small thing, or it can come from a budget. So really, those are like our, so it feels like
Well,
we need
don't
to
Get that
commit.
truck. The truck seems to be in there someplace.
Yeah,
And you've got, although it's I don't know what the feeling is about definitions between highway equipment and equipment that's used for building maintenance.
right, because
It's all DPW.
right,
That was my feeling, but
right. So that would, you're saying that would need to come from ARPA because there's not enough funding
I think you've got money in the highway equipment
Can
fund.
you go to highway, John?
Yeah,
Please. Oops.
if you're thinking about having it come from the fund,
Yep.
an issue might be that the fund is right up here, a capital reserve for highway equipment. That's the wording.
That's what I was looking at when I was saying.
That's the wording that was
So
in
it'd
the
have to-
legislation that created it.
So it would not be from
But
there.
if the truck is gonna be plowing roads.
Yeah, a portion of it, remember how we did the split with the, like the portion of it that goes to the highway department, but not all of it could be
With
funded,
the drum,
Or,
with the truck.
or you decide to do a change of purpose to include
right?
Is
other things
this,
that are related to it.
is this one of the funds that we can change the purpose, or does this be voted on?
No,
Oh, it always has to go
Oh,
to
wait,
the
okay.
voters, and it requires 2/3 to do a change of purpose.
So that's where it becomes a smarter idea to use ARPA funding, because then it doesn't matter if it's,
Well, then you don't get to do some of those other things, because we only got, what, 59,000? We're talking about, what was
Yeah.
it?
Well, it's
About
not 59.
A little less than that, but close to
So
that,
then you
certainly for a
don't
truck.
really have money to do anything else.
right, which
It's
is not.
46.
Well, don't forget the plow.
Wait, it's 46 before the plow, is what I'm saying, it's not 59, it's 46.
So it's like
Um,
762 something.
Can't we do a payment
Is-
plan like everybody else?
You could certainly do a lease.
Option? I mean, we have a
You can lease
truck we're gonna
vehicles.
sell, can we, could having it all come out right now?
As you pointed out, you can also split it. You can say half of the use, because it has a plow on it, half of the use is the work that was done by highway
Right,
of plowing parking lots and driveways and so forth.
great,
And part of it is for taking trash from buildings to the transfer station, and so that's not highway.
But then you could take it out of the transfer station then.
It's transfer station equipment, so
do we know how much we have left?
stuff that was
this year?
taken, stuff from the transfer station is equipment, like the roll-off truck, but not stuff that's
DPW.
getting it
I
to.
Don't know what we've got left in that fund.
And it was fun.
I was just saying, if we had a large amount of, like a chunk of money that was left from the DPW before the end of the year,
No.
I
I'm
think
sorry,
that's
I
pretty,
I
because
misread what
buildings
you're
are
saying.
smaller.
We are exceedingly tight on
Okay, that's fine.
DPW budget right now.
All right. Well, the splitting is one thing you can consider. Some out of ARPA and some out of the highway.
And how much did you think the truck was going to be? 47,
It was,
37?
yeah, 47.6, I think was the bid price I looked at. That was an F-250 four-wheel drive
Plus,
vehicle.
what, 6,300 for a plow?
Oh,
63, about 63. So that's what, almost 54,000.
And is the use 50/50 or?
yeah. How about 90-10?
10, just like the roll-up truck? I don't think so.
If the trustees, the trustee, yeah.
Based on the number of
Like,
snowfalls we
through
had.
that.
When, with the roll-off truck, when that first came up, the suggested split was 50/50. And at that, the trustees of trust fund said, we don't understand why it's 50/50, so you need to provide something that explains that. When it came to 90-10, we said, who's gonna worry about that? I mean, we don't need a supporting spreadsheet for that.
Mm.
But if you think about them using it for taking trash, that happens on a weekly / daily basis. Plowing, what did we have, like 4 or 5 storms this last year? So,
You know,
Well, they probably plowed more than that, just every time it rained and got icy, or, I'm assuming they would probably.
but that's something that would have to come from Steve in terms of what he thought the breakdown would be in
Or
terms of.
Steve's
Yeah.
lovely new assistant.
Or Steve's love, but what if the lovely new assistant is a man? That's not.
They
They can be
still
lovely, absolutely.
Really? Men lovely? Okay.
Absolutely.
That is not the scenario right now. It would be a
So,
lovely
gender
female.
lovely, you know.
Person.
Delightful new
Okay, I'll go
assistant.
with delightful person,
There
yes.
you go.
Delightful new
Yeah.
assistant.
Alright.
That I don't have any idea what the gender involved, it's just a general term I use. But perhaps
You
the
may-
assistant could run that math.
You may also be able to roll in some kind of importance factor, like if you can't get the roads plowed, you've got a problem. If you can't get the driveway plowed, you've got a parking lot.
Well, and the
Yeah,
entire
from-
plow would be from highway equipment, so it's not the whole 53
Oh, I
that has to
see.
go out in half.
There's a
If it's
hybrid
got a
one.
plow on it, that's all comes in.
Those are options.
So I think that's something that, if we can get some input from Steve.
Yep.
Or his delightful assistant.
When they start.
Yeah.
They have a lot to do the first week they start, man. They have busy.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to happen the first day,
No, I
we still have
understand.
2 more years, but if you were able to split it, 50/50,
That'd be great.
then that's only using half of the remainder of the year. Well, that's 3,000. Getting closer.
So is that something that you want, when the town administrator gets that, to send that to me to enter?
And remember,
that's really good.
it doesn't have to be a brand new vehicle as well. I think it's cheaper because of the deals we get, but
Yeah, I think when you look at this type of vehicle secondhand, you're gonna see the state bid price is probably on par with a 2 or 3-year-old
okay.
dealer, used vehicle or private sale used vehicle. I mean, Steve may be able to find something.
Yeah, it just seems crazy to be buying a trash truck you're gonna snowplow with and have it be brand new when there's, you know.
Pretty basic F-250 with 4-wheel drive right now at a dealer is over 70 grand, so.
The 45 is a very good deal.
The bid prices for the state are exceptional. I mean, they're not quite as fancy. You've got metal instead of carpet probably on the floor, that sort of
Right,
thing.
right. That's
Same
fine.
drivetrain, same.
All right. But you'll peek at a hybrid just to make me happy. Thanks.
I won't,
Well, hybrid won't take a plow.
No, the hybrid will, I just read it, the electric by itself. There's
Oh, electric
hybrid
by
and then there's
itself,
electric.
Volvo makes some nice hybrids. I don't know if they take plows.
Who is it?
I mean, Rivian does
What?
too, but that's not really at our price point,
What's the
so.
manufacturer? What did you say?
Volvo makes some.
Oh, Volvo, oh.
Yeah, they're really good looking.
Hybrids, so.
All right.
Okay. Anything else? We did all the tabs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
We have the fire department AC probably coming from ARPA pending.
Yeah, I mean, how we do that is fine, let's just take like a hot minute and just peek and see. Even if you just ask them real quick, they might do the research for you with that.
Who's on the CIP? Are they starting to do their thing
No,
so we
that's
don't have to wait for them
Let's,
this year?
I have not spoken with anyone on the CIP committee or
I'm gonna send
scheduled
an
any
email right
recent
now.
meetings, so.
Okay.
Good for that.
because we actually talked about it just recently and then I haven't seen it yet, so I'll just, I'll remind your email.
I know that you kind of were rushed last year, so
Yeah, we wanted to start working on the spring and everyone, some
Okay.
of us have
No, fair
started new
enough.
jobs.
fair enough, I'm just asking, so.
It's all good.
So we are not thinking to do the GIS GPS tracking from ARPA, and we are not thinking to do the transfer station sprinkler pipes.
Correct.
Okay.
And also, are we agreed that Andy can purchase his handheld and 2, whatever they're called,
Card
card
readers.
readers? So we can have him just go and do that and just be done with it?
Do we need a motion for that?
I don't know, again.
I just asked you.
It's cleaner if there's a motion.
Okay,
So,
so moved.
second,
All in favor?
discussion?
Discussion?
No discussion, thank you.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
so there you go.
Motion
So I have
passes.
the, so $12.50 from ARPA for the debit card readers. We
Yes.
have whatever it's gonna take for the replace the fire department AC.
Oh, that was the other thing we didn't do in the motion though, that it comes from ARPA, didn't we?
Okay.
We'd like to amend the-
Actually, word it, we approve the use of ARPA funds for up to $1,250 for 3 carded debit card readers
Second,
to be paid for from ARPA.
second.
Discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Now we're
So
leaving
we just
the-
authorized 2 purchases of,
We're rescinding the original purchase. We're only taking the first
Just
one.
rewording
Second one.
it.
Just ordered 6.
And we left the cemetery shed and we left the energy, the $8,000 for the energy upgrade.
and we tasked Dave with checking the $8,000 energy things, and we tasked who's for the cemetery.
The deleveling.
The delightful assistant, so
Right.
when they get, okay.
And I will talk probably with the assistant, Mr. Hoyt, and Donna.
Perfect, I love it. All right, so we have a path forward and some very important possible ways of spending the last amount of money.
Oh, anything more from the cemetery trustees about the cemetery off Clay Lane?
No, not that it's been shared with me anyway.
I'm hearing rumors, so, as in terms of space for people, urns and full bodies and whatever.
You hearing rumors about that?
Oh, yeah, I
You
heard
heard there's
rumors.
some weird
About, like,
rumors. Is this in the grocery store? Because that's.
No, I don't hear cemetery
Where do
stuff
I
in the
bury
grocery
my
store.
father?
But it appears that people are contemplating using Clay Lane as the new cemetery expansion. So,
I have heard the same because I was looking at it for a potential solar array site and I was told, because it's right by three-phase power, which is
Oh,
really exciting.
three-phase power.
And it's in Clay, it's a great location.
you know,
I was told that there were the focus of bodies, and I said, can't we put bodies and then solar? That was my little inappropriate
Put the
joke
array
since we're
on
having
hinges.
Wednesday.
Open the hole, dig the hole.
The library trustees did present that to you.
What?
I'm sorry, cemetery trustees.
the library is doing cemeteries now?
I'm sorry, cemetery.
Jeez. My goodness.
It's all good, John.
I heard it's a
Trustees,
money-making
yes.
opportunity.
Cemetery trustees did bring to the select board the possibility of using Clay Lane.
Okay,
as
well, that's
a
what I
future
wanted.
library.
It wasn't a
because-
rumor, it was just a
Yeah,
stated.
well, I
fact.
wanted to see if we can update this, if they've got some information about it, because we don't have anything here. I assume it would be on town buildings maybe, I don't know, where we look cemetery stuff.
I mean, what's the expense of turning a clay,
No.
sand pit into a?
The other thing, they're talking about fences, remember they were talking about fences too, so. I
They
don't know.
were talking about repair of existing fences, and the trustees actually couldn't get anybody to give them a quote, and they did get a partial quote, and I don't believe they could get a contractor to come out and do
Did
it.
it, like now or next year, it'll be very different than it was a year or two ago.
This was to repair or replace the front fence,
Right,
which is historic.
and
Okay. But speaking about that, where would we put that? Like,
Well, this
Cemetery.
is a tool
But
that
there's
is
no-
primarily designed for, how do you plan for expendable trust and reserve funds?
Right.
you know,
So
That's
there
not-
isn't one for,
well, there is one for cemeteries, but that's
It's run by
just
the
maintenance,
cemetery.
right?
there was, there still is,
Yeah.
an expendable trust fund that was private donations. It has been fully expended. The fund still exists, of course, but right now it has a zero balance, so, and it was private money. So unless someone, or until someone donates more money for that purpose,
Mm.
Okay.
it has nothing.
But they've been taking out their expenses, because they weren't taking expenses for a while. Have they taken them out?
They have taken some expenses for
Okay.
projects. They had tree removal at a private cemetery,
Yeah,
and that was, it took out $2,000.
okay.
And then this donation for care and upkeep, that someone donated $1,000, that had grown to like $1,150. And they took that out also for a tree
Okay.
removal.
Don't we have
Heavily
less
hailed.
expenses with the excavator now too, as well? We used to have to pay some money every time, don't we do that ourselves? Would that start to save us?
my understanding is that they are, they're now digging holes
Right.
for urns and caskets.
So hopefully that will help with some of the increased costs, because you haven't decreased the,
Right, we're not paying a contractor anymore. I think
Right.
we were paying at least $400 a pop to have the
Right.
contractor come dig the holes.
Mhm.
so hopefully that starts to help with the funding for maintenance, and maybe part of maintenance can become some of the fences and things, because that should be part of the cemetery. 'Cause that's why you pay all that money, is so that it's maintained in perpetuity.
Perpetuity.
And
But
they also
that money
increased the funds.
pays only for the maintenance of that plot.
Right,
No,
But
it's
you
the
will care.
maintenance of the, like,
entire
What?
cemetery.
So it can't pay for the fence,
Okay.
it can't pay for tree removal unless there was a tree on that plot.
Okay.
interesting.
And it's supposed to be a portion, so if you have two plots, pay twice as much, and we have twice as much in income to,
I thought it was all joined together for the cemetery together, but it's just, you're saying
No,
just for the
there's-
plot.
It's for perpetual care of the.
That.
we maintain over 300 separate funds in the books.
Okay,
It's around 280 something, approaching 290
okay.
separate perpetual care funds for
Okay.
the cemetery.
So if there was like a hole or something
Now,
happened,
the-
that fund would be there, ready for that one.
It's for each individual plot. The town has a choice as to how it wants to do things. In the past, this was the only choice. If the town wanted to change, it could say all the money that comes in for, or some fraction of the money that comes in for buying a plot, or the right to use a plot, goes into a town fund, and that then can be used for the whole cemetery.
Right.
And as far as the trustees of trust funds are concerned, it's up to you.
Doesn't that
We-
seem like a much less complicated and much less,
Well, once you have to
Person.
already keep track of 280, you've
Why not
written a
add
spreadsheet to do that.
Right.
So then, and that, all those 280 that gets uploaded, all the money is invested in common.
Mhm.
So at
Okay.
the end of each year, all of that money, then the income gets a portion pro rata. And the information and all that gets
So you've
put
assisted.
out to a CSV, that goes up to the town, the state portal.
Got it.
So once you have a system for doing all that,
And you can't not do it for those, so you have to.
I don't know that there's any mechanism where you can take those and turn it into something else.
I just know that it will never have a smaller number, it will only get larger. So as long as you're ready for the
Correct.
next.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's
Yeah.
true.
I think it's worth a discussion if the cemetery trustees and select board wanted to have that discussion.
They just
Just-
raise plot prices too.
How do you, I just don't understand, like, if it's cemetery, just that one little plot, I mean, it's the whole experience of the person going to visit that plot, the fencing, all of it, like, how is that not part of it?
I think that may be part of the argument for why the state created this second method, where all that money can go in to a single fund.
You can use it for mowing, that sort of thing, because that's.
Do we do that? Do we take
I
a charge?
believe they
every
do
time?
have
They're supposed,
We have not received that. That has to be, for them to do that, they need to keep track of the mowing costs.
Mhm.
Decide of that mowing cost, how much does it cost per area and per plot? And then ask us to reimburse,
So who would pay for the
$3.
walking path that is not that particular path that they have to mow? Like, that just seems
That's
very
the town.
strange that we're, okay.
Yeah, this is the way it works in state
Got
statute,
it.
is that
I'm learning.
these are considered to be a legitimate
Perfect.
charitable trust,
Okay,
a non-expendable trust fund, so you can't expend the principal that someone paid,
got it.
but you can only expend the income that comes from that.
Okay.
And it
Fair.
can only be used for repairs or maintenance of that individual plot.
That makes sense.
It could be used for the repair of a headstone
Mhm.
that's on that plot. For the private cemeteries, there's, I think it's around 20 of the private cemeteries that have their own trust fund.
Okay.
And that, of course, pays for the whole private cemetery.
Because if somebody had a vandalized headstone or broke with age, the rest of them didn't, how would that one plot have enough money if it were paying its fees?
If that one plot had enough money, it would pay for it. If it didn't, it would pay whatever piece it could.
Okay.
And just as a quick note, your homeowner's insurance will pay for vandalism too.
Okay, but wear and tear
Immediate
on a.
family, for instance, and part of the thing there too.
Thanks, Andy. You guys, I feel like we just had a real education on cemeteries.
The only way out of that is if one of those private funds grew to the point where there was no foreseeable way that you could ever expend the income
Okay,
on that single plot,
then,
then you can apply to a court
okay,
to get the court to agree with you if they
Right.
choose to.
which is gonna be.
Yes, that amount is so high that you could never use it on that single plot. We don't have any like that.
No, okay, great. I'm I'm happy with it doing whatever it is it's been doing, and whatever is reasonable, I just didn't realize all that, and I always thought that that paid for the cemetery, so good to know.
The select board and the cemetery trustees could discuss that, and my point is just the trustees of trust funds, that we don't have any say about that in their
Okay.
opinion.
Okay.
Something to think about when they come to the ABC.
Yeah,
Maybe,
okay.
anything else?
I think that's it.
Will the chair consider adjourning the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. John. Just don't get our mics mixed up. I don't want to use your mic.
So
You
since
know what
you,
these
you
mics-
want to do an H auction, how did you run the fire rate? I saw your name.
That's funny, so I got the vent one, and I got the nutcracker.